Hey, welcome back to this channel. I'm Stefanie Lugo.
And I'm Bryce.
And we are realtors with My Home Group Real Estate serving the greater Metro Phoenix area here in Arizona. Thanks so much for tuning in with us. We have a October market update for you in terms of the Metro Phoenix real estate market. We're excited to share a little bit about what we're seeing. Lots of changes in the market coming up. Would you agree?
Yeah, quite a bit.
There's been a lot of speculation over the last year about when things are going to start cooling off for buyers, right? Because like the whole, I feel like news headlines over the year has been all about sellers and how it's been a really crazy seller market, which is what we've been seeing. But the question is like things can only be that high for so long. So where I wanted to start is where we are seeing trends heading for buyers as we begin to head into the end of the year. So one of the best indicators for what we're actually feeling is inventory, and that is the amount of homes available on the market.
Right. And in the last 6 months or so, we've seen them nearly double. Inventory, that is.
I always want to add a caveat to this, right? Because like this year, the market has been so extreme that even really big numbers like that, like doubling of inventory, that sounds dramatic. It's still only just a tiny shift in the actual conditions on the ground. Because like you said, like we are still seeing multiple offer situations, but I think the difference is instead of like 30 offers on some properties, we might be seeing like 5.
Unless it's like super, super nice, of course. But yeah, we're still seeing multiple offers on properties. Inventory, like I just said a minute ago, has basically doubled, but we still only have, I think it's like less than 7,000 homes on the market. That's not a lot.
Yeah. For
as large of a city as we are. But yeah, if it's looking great, it's gonna get, a lot of attention, but we're just having more options for our buyers right now. It's great. There's a little bit less competition, some cooling down maybe on some of the investors, I think. Which just gives our traditional buyers the ability to get into homes.
I think that the important thing to note is this is October, and these stats are always lagging, right? So it takes a while for us to see real-time effects of the market show up in these numbers. So, for example, when we go to December, this is probably going to look totally different. And I know you're going to share that when you talk about sellers in a minute. But December is typically the lowest month for inventory. It drops quite a bit during the holiday season, sometimes over 30%, which we are seeing that seasonal shift this year in the market. So that is something to kind of be a note of. So while inventory is up late September through October, maybe even through Thanksgiving, that's a really, really good indicator for buyers who are still kind of on the fence. Like maybe if you've been holding out for a couple of months, this is your time to get back in and actually get a competitive deal. The other thing that we've been hearing a lot of this year is the headlines around the forbearance. So forbearance was lifted, or the evictions rather were lifted in the last couple of months. Forbearances were becoming due, and we've actually seen about 80% of homeowners who were affected by that be able to stay in their homes. So there was not this huge watershed moment where there is a giant influx of inventory into the market. And if you actually break it down, there's really only about 6,000, a little more than 6,000 homes that might ultimately be selling in the whole state of Arizona that were affected by this.
Yeah.
And seeing as in the numbers that we were looking at, seeing as the numbers kind of shake out to be between like 11 and 14,000 sales total each month, that's going to be a really small drop in the bucket. So
and a lot of those might not even hit the market. We talked about that. I mean, there's a ton of companies that are buying for rental properties, and those could just get scooped up easily in that sense. Yeah,
they do tend to, not always respectfully, but they do tend to belong to that group of homes that have different conditions when they're selling. They need a really fast, easy close. They like to have something with cash, no contingencies, because they got to get out.
Yeah.
And so iBuyers are perfect for that, which is kind of another video that we've had in the past. So if you are not clear on what iBuyers are and how they affect the Phoenix market, check out that video here. That was a great video that we did, and I think that's a really good way to explain that too.
Yep.
So I guess what that really all comes down to, that's a lot of talk about like inventory and like market shifts and things, forbearance. What does that mean from the numbers perspective from buyers who are looking at prices?
Well, we're still seeing price reductions, some on some homes, but we're seeing some of our buyers get, small deals, not have to necessarily pay over what is being asked. We're seeing prices rise a little bit more slowly just in general in the market. Although going into 2022, which we'll talk about later, we're seeing projections of 16%, I think is what Goldman Sachs is talking about for next year.
Just across the board?
Across the board, yeah. So, but locally right now, I mean, we are seeing with inventory having risen a little bit, some prices being pulled back so that they're not, I guess, as out of control.
Yeah, I'm happy that you made that point, because I think that it's important to distinguish, like, let's not, and we've talked about this, let's not get confused about price reductions on listings being different from prices still rising, because some sellers may have gotten a little excited hitting the market right as things started cooling, and they have missed the mark, and we're seeing that they've missed the mark, and the market is telling them that you're listed too high, we're not playing these games anymore. So price reductions a lot of times can just mean that they were just so astronomically high to begin with, but they're still coming down a little bit. That doesn't necessarily mean prices overall are not continuing to rise. Is that kind of...
Yeah, I think, and honestly, like when inventory was like half of what it is now, so about 6 months ago, with as many buyers as we had, they kind of would just buy anything that was a good home that had walls and a roof. Whereas today, you're not seeing. Well, I guess I could say you're seeing a little bit more pickiness in the buyers. So the sellers that were thinking, well, I'll just slap it on with the same price as this remodeled home over here, they're not getting that price anymore.
Yeah.
So they're seeing it kind of sit just for a little bit more and then have to correct the price to meet the market.
Yeah. So good news for buyers on that end, for sure.
So. I think it's great news.
So I guess from the buyer perspective, we still think that buying during this time of year is a great time to get some deals. Maybe have a little less competition from other buyers who are taking a step out to maybe travel or, enjoy the holidays.
Family time.
Spend their money in other ways, right? This is when we see buyers get a lot of really good deals. And if, like I mentioned earlier, if you have taken a step back because you were just tired of competing during the spring or summer, this might be a really great time to get in it while interest rates are still low, which is going to have a way more direct impact on your affordability.
Rates are still really, really good. They've risen in the last couple of weeks. We've seen that happen. Not a lot, but like a quarter of a point, and that matters depending on your price point. That can matter quite a bit. If you're wanting to, like, if you're even on the fence, I mean, you should be, I would say you should be looking right now. I don't know that there are screaming deals out there, but there's definitely value in these homes, especially if they're dropping their price. We're seeing things hit some homes that are, again, not those fancy homes that are hitting 30, 40, 50 days on market,
Which we haven't seen in over a year, I feel
like.
like.
And if you're able to put some work into the house as a buyer, maybe you're a little handy, then you might get a better deal. In general, I do see some of that happening, which is great.
So let's talk about this from the seller's perspective, okay? As inventory increases, that is going to directly affect sellers because they have a little more competition. Sometimes we've seen entire neighborhoods where there's only like one or two. I just remember earlier this spring looking at the MLS on a map and seeing a wide range of a search range for homes and seeing like maybe one or two listings in an entire huge subdivision. Now there's more listed, right?
I mean, just for example, in our neighborhood, 4 homes went up in the last month, right? And as of today, 3 out of the 4 are sold or pending, rather. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where they're all chasing that price, but the one that hasn't sold, I mean, it hasn't sold for a reason because they're just way too high and they're not making that smart move, correcting in value. But as far as if you're on the fence or thinking about selling anytime soon or whatever it is, if you're listening to your agent and your agent's got their finger on the market, then they should be able to tell you, and they should be seeing the same things that we're seeing, where the market has not corrected, but it's slowed a little bit, right? Inventory is built up. So don't go shoot for the moon. What's the realistic number? What's your house actually worth? Because the market is responding, and that's that's where that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
And we just did this when we listed a house a week ago. Same thing just happened where the street over, I think someone listed a house for some kind of absurd number, same basic house as ours, but smaller. And they're just, I think, not paying attention to the market, if you ask me. But then you come on, you talk to your clients, you list it right, price as well, and then you get the activity.
Yeah, I think in a market as volatile as we're seeing still, this is not the time to be playing games with your largest investment. So you do want to be strategic, you do want to be intentional, especially as we get into the holidays where things shift so rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I mentioned was inventory does drop in between Thanksgiving and New Year's. We see inventory drop on average 34% every single year. But you know what else drops is buyer demand, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
And so we do want to make sure that we're keeping all things balanced and not just relating your largest investment to whatever the headline of the day is.
Sure.
So with that being said, the next video we have is what sellers can do to prepare for a really strong sale in the fourth quarter during the holidays, because we have plenty of clients who want to sell during that year. So during that time of the year rather. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that.
Cool.
So we'll see you back here. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, be sure to do that by hitting that red subscribe button and hit that bell notification icon to be notified every time we're dropping new videos just like this. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.